On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, Mizzou men's basketball is back. We previewed our Kenny and Payton preview. This is actually the only time you'll see me on the show doing the intro here. But Kenny and Payton carried the load this week. Did a preview with our good friend Grant Salsman from the Columbia Missourian, the Mizzou men's basketball beat writer over there. Brought him on, talked to Grant. Just on a preview, looked ahead to Memphis, previewed the season, expectations, roster, all that stuff with a bunch of newcomers. So great interview with Grant Salsman that Kenny and Payton did. Also provided a quick hit on Tony Perkins, who of course is dealing with some injury stuff heading into the opener. So Grant provided the latest there as well. So great interview with Grant Salsman. Definitely check that out. And then of course, Kenny and Payton did quick hits as usual. Monday quick hits. So it was Ken's Sports Shorts, Tigers in the Wild, a little Tigers in the NFL, a little NFL football talk, and then headlines. A lot of interesting college football stuff that Peyton and Kenny touched on during the bye week. AP poll got a big shakeup. Got the CFP rankings coming out on Tuesday. Not that Mizzou will be very involved in that one, but is interesting nonetheless because it has been a chaotic year. So had some college football talk to finish up the show. So good one for you guys as you listen and prepare for the Memphis game here on Monday night. So looking forward to watching that along with all of y'all, and we'll see how that goes, but enjoy this preview with Grant Salsman. In the meantime, the Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, November 4th. We're going to get right into our interview for this week because it's a big one. Mizzou men's basketball opens its 2024-2025 season today when you're listening to this, and we need to preview it. We haven't done this yet. We talked a little bit about basketball, and we went straight to the source, a guy who's been around this team into the preseason, into these meetings with the players, the scrimmage recently. He's seen it all, and that's Grant Salsman from the Columbia Missourian. Of course, we had to go back to our roots to talk to someone, and of course, you've probably seen him on KCOU as well, heard him on KCOU, seen him around Twitter. But Grant, I think it's a pretty easy one just to start with, kind of a layup question. Can you tell Mizzou fans, are the Tigers going to win a game in SEC play this season?
You know, before I answer that, I'm glad to be back on, Unwritten Rule from KCOU to now we're here. It's exciting, I'm still, in the workings of KCOU. So it's fun to be here. Yes, Missouri will win a SEC game. It can't be worse. It can only be equal. But no, yes, they will win an SEC game. That'd be unfathomable to not happen. Although I think, let's say they go 0-18 again. I think Dennis Gates somehow would keep his job again.
Really? I don't know.
As that is, but with the recruiting classes he's getting, and with the guys he's already signed two 4-stars, obviously Aaron Rowe, one of them. I think he would keep his job again.
That'd be a tough sell for the fan base, but I do agree with you that they'll win an SEC game, so I don't think it'll be it'll be too bad. But just kind of bouncing off of that, I mean, obviously last year was just a disaster. I don't think anyone really, even in their worst nightmare, kind of envisioned happening. But I mean, it still didn't, like you did mention, it didn't affect the recruiting at all. I mean, they were still able to bring in every single one of those freshmen. They had a very encouraging transfer class. I mean, Mark Mitchell, a Duke starter, you don't get those every day at Mizzou. Guys like Jacob Cruz, Tony Perkins. I mean, what's kind of the vibe around this team? I mean, obviously they're expecting improvement, but I mean, what maybe is a realistic expectation for this Mizzou team going into the year?
Well, yeah, I think the vibe around it is it feels like this is the first time at Missouri that Dennis Gates has his ideal roster. Guys that can shoot, but also big, lengthy guards that are quick, can cause turnovers, wreak havoc, but also big men. I mean, Missouri really has not had big guys. Josh Gray comes in. Mark Mitchell's a big, small / power forward at 6'9". So I think that it's kind of building his perfect identity of a team, at least size and lengthwise. And I think expectations are at least that amongst the team that they're an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if you can say that they don't make the NCAA tournament, it's a disappointment. But from what I've seen and what I think with the transfers, if they hit, I think they're a bubble team at worst.
Looking at those transfers, looking at this team, it looks completely different. I mean, even comparing it to when Peyton and I were there, I think even early on in your college career, it's a different team, different program when Konzo Martin was at the helm. Looking at a lot of these transfers, a lot of these older guys coming in, I mean, who in your mind are like maybe the two biggest impacts, and then maybe one that's just kind of flying under the radar that we're not hearing much about?
I think obviously Mark Mitchell is the biggest impact right away. I mean, Julius Erving Award nominee watch list, however you want to call it. And he's really worked on his 3-point shot too. I mean, he went 2 for 2. I know it was against Lincoln in the exhibition, but it looked smoother. It's not perfect. There's still a little hitch, but if he can step out and make mid-range in threes with his defense and his inside scoring threat, that would really turn him into a whole different beast. And then I think Tony Perkins, obviously, I think he can really lead the charge of this offense at the point guard position, but don't count out Marquez Warwick too. He's the leading scorer, active leading scorer in the NCAA. He's a guy that just knows how to get his shot inside the arc. He's dangerous. His 3-point shot isn't quite there, but I think a guy going to the radar is Josh Gray. He's not going to put up a lot on the stat sheet besides rebounding. He's not a great scorer, not great, obviously passing the ball. But what he's going to be is just a defensive presence. That's what he prides himself on, he said he prides himself on being a defensive menace. So I think that's a guy that maybe Mizzou fans are not looking at close enough, that I think really could just transform the way this team plays defense and how they rebound as well.
Boy, I'll tell you what, if Mizzou, after the last few years, has just a guy that can sit at the 5 and contest shots, I think a lot of people would be okay. Grant, one person you did mention in that answer there was Tony Perkins. And I mean, obviously getting a high major transfer like that is gonna create some buzz, but there is a little bit of concern with him. He didn't play the exhibition. Dennis Gates kind of gave a little bit of a vague answer, not totally saying he 100% thinks he'll play against Memphis. I don't think it'd be much of a thing for Mizzou fans if we didn't go kind of through the same thing with Mosley and John Tanjay, just to name a couple, with the will they, won't they play. So I'm curious, Tony Perkins, should Mizzou fans be concerned at all? I mean, where's that at?
I don't think so, because I think it could be a little different. Mosley's obviously was, we're going to assume, not injury related. Like, look, it was 2 years ago and we still don't know. The Tanjay one, it feels like, is maybe because the team was so not a competitor. There was no reason to rush him back at that point. I think Tony Perkins will play. I think it was very much precautionary reasons. I can't say if he'll play in this game versus Memphis today or not. But either way, I think you will see Tony Perkins sooner rather than later. It does stink when these coaches give these cryptic answers, because we have no idea what the injury is. I think the longer, if he were to not play versus Memphis, and then let's say versus Howard, is when Gates it'd become harder and harder for him to keep it that close to the cup. So I think eventually we'll find out if he's not back soon.
Hey, I mean, we brought this up in a previous episode with Eli Drinkwitz. That one of the best things college coaches like to do is not tell the full story, because they don't have to. It's what they like to do. They like to hide it. So they see it as an advantage most of the time, especially when you're going against Memphis in that first game. One guy I just want to hit on real quick, and it's because I just haven't heard much about him. And he had a good season last year, and that's Tamar Bates. I mean, maybe some speculation. Maybe he looked somewhere else after a pretty brutal season, stayed with Mizzou. I mean, he was very high on Dennis Gates when he transferred in. I mean, what have you just kind of seen from Tamar Bates? I mean, does he take a step forward this season?
I think if Mizzou gets the same Tamar Bates they got last year, averaging, I think, over 13 to 14 points a game, throwing in 4 or 5 assists / rebounds a game, I think they're completely happy. I don't know if he needs to take a huge step forward. I think if he plays on the same level, obviously if he improves, that's an even plus. But I think Tamar Bates is one of the most crucial returners Missouri has. I think he's a guy that when you need it, he's going to find a way to go score. And I mean, that was a career year for him last year by a wide margin. Points, rebounds, assists, everything were career best. I think we can expect more of the same of Tamar, just a consistent guy, a consistent scorer, maybe some shot selections a little bit better, but also I think last year was Tamar Bates, or the offense wasn't really moving at all. This year, at least, there's a lot more help around him, I think, a lot more skilled scorers around him. So maybe you see Tamar be able to excel more defensively, saving a little more energy or facilitating the ball as well.
Another big returning piece for them is Caleb Grill. I mean, Caleb Grill didn't really have his shot until the last couple of games he played last year. But I mean, then he missed the entire season with a wrist injury. I mean, he's back now. He lit Lincoln up in the exhibition game, which is an encouraging sign. Do you expect him to? I'm sure he'll be one of the key contributors. Do you expect him to start? I mean, what are your expectations of Caleb Grill this year?
I think if you ask Dennis Gates, Caleb Grill is the most important player on the entire team. Just the way that he's a leader on the team. He was named a captain. But two, I think his defensive acumen with the aggressiveness is very important on that side of the ball. And he's a great rebounder for a guard. Before last year, only in 9 games, but at Iowa State, he averaged almost 6 rebounds a game when he played. So I think that side of it, the defensive side, is crucial, but also just the way he can create shots. He's a guy that feels comfortable driving, but also probably has the best jump shot on the team. I think he's the best shooter on the team, and I think that in this system, Caleb Grill can have the best year of his career by far in his last season in college basketball. And the jump shot, he said in media days how he worked on it a lot after the wrist injury just to look smooth. It looked pure. I mean, it looked very repeatable. Nothing about it seemed fluky at all. I think it was 5 for 6 from 3 against Lincoln. And that's the thing. I mean, yeah, it's Lincoln, but shooting's going to translate to anybody. So I'm really excited for Grill. I think he's going to be crucial in this team. Almost a Demoy Hodge role, I think, will be built for Caleb Grill.
There's a lot of energy from him too, I think.
Yes.
Glue guy in that sense as well. I mean, a lot of fight in that Minnesota game, kind of literally too. And so looking at last year, so I think a full year of him will be pretty crucial. We've been talking about a lot of older guys. There's a lot of grad transfers, a couple of seniors on this team. But you mentioned it, coming in with a pretty star-studded class in the class of 2024. I mean, looking at those freshmen, who should see a good amount of run this season?
It's hard because you have a lot of studs. I think Trent Burns and T.O. Barrett probably are the ones that you don't see as often. I think Honor Boateng will be consistently part of the role, especially what he offers defensively with Marcus Allen. I think if those guys play good defense all season long, I think Dennis Gates is not going to be able to keep them out of the rotation, because even if they have some learning steps offensively in college basketball, I think the defense will translate right away. And I think Mizzou fans should be really excited about that. I think Marcus Allen might be, out of all of the freshmen, the one that plays the most, actually, because I think he's the best defender, and maybe he's one of the players that has been kind of looked over, because, you have the Honor Boatengs, you have all these big recruits, and Marcus Allen's just kind of a quiet guy, but I think he's going to be a crucial role. Honor Boateng's obviously going to be great, and then Peyton Marshall's going to be so fun to watch, the 7-foot, 300-pound freshman. I think watching him versus Lincoln, he's very raw, but the thing is, he's just bigger, faster, and stronger than most of the teams they're going to be playing, so he can kind of just assert his will down low. It'll be interesting seeing transition from kind of the non-con schedule where they're going to be facing a lot of smaller teams. I think Howard's incredibly tiny. He could feast against those teams. And then when you play Memphis, guys with size. So I think Marshall has a lot of learning to do scoring, but he's going to be a big presence down low for Missouri all season.
I want to touch on one more returner here, and it's a guy that I swear we have heard absolutely nothing about since he returned, and that's Aiden Shaw. I think a lot of people might have been a little bit surprised Aiden Shaw came back, just because, you want as many of those scholarships as you can when you got to remake your roster. But I mean, it does make sense. I mean, Aiden Shaw, I think everyone will acknowledge the athletic ceiling with him is something that someone like Dennis Gates is going to drool over. It's just a matter of he has to get his game to kind of evolve. So I'm curious, what have you maybe heard or picked up on? Like, what are they expecting out of Aiden Shaw this year?
Yeah, I think Aiden Shaw is obviously a crucial guy in the locker room. I think he's kind of like the fourth captain almost, the next guy in line. And I think if you think of the last 2 years as a Mizzou fan, you think to yourself, what does Aiden Shaw do well? And I don't want to sound harsh here. I don't think he does anything great, at least so far in his first 2 years. He's not a great shooter. Obviously, he can jump out of the gym. He hasn't played defense at a great rate, but it feels like he's matured a little bit to where he's learning to play within his body. He knows he's not a great shooter. I think defense is going to be his best trait this season. Just a guy that can fly around, athletic, like you said, can kind of guard 1 through 5 as well. And they were playing a lot of zone versus Lincoln. Maybe a guy that is going to be able to jump in those passing lanes and then also help on the help side, help against big guys as well. And I think they want to see more of him just being able to drive. It seems like a lot of his baskets the last 2 seasons have been kind of lobs or just open passes where he's open down low. I think they want to see him be able to create his own shot a little bit more. So I think the offensive side is a little challenging to kind of put a gauge on what it will be. But I think they view him as a crucial part of this defensive makeup of the team.
It's always been about athleticism, as well as what we've heard. That the potential's there. We just still haven't seen it yet. Going into the season, like we said, if people are listening to this, the season has already started or is just about to start with Memphis on Monday, the season opener. Tigers heading on the road to take on Memphis, 7:00 for this game on ESPN Plus. But Grant, I mean, looking at this game, what are the Tigers kind of matching up against, and what should fans kind of expect in this first game?
Memphis is always weird because it feels like, at least with me, ever since they got Penny Hardaway, they have these really lofty, high expectations that don't really ever pan out. And right now, this program is in turmoil. Penny Hardaway's head assistant left out of the blue in the summer, and then he fired 4 more assistant coaches, a month ago? Maybe a little over a month ago. So It just feels like this team just is kind of, I don't know what kind of chemistry or locker room stability they have, and they're only returning 1 player from last season, but they have a lot of talent. PJ Haggerty is a guy that I think everyone should look out for. He's a Tulsa transfer. He was the American Player of the Year. Tyrese Hunter, too, great guard. He's going to be he's a pure scorer. Those are really their 2 guys. But again, you don't know a lot about the team yet, just because they're all kind of put together. They have Musa Cisse and Dane Danger, who Mizzou fans should be familiar with from Illinois. So they have a lot of size, 6'11", and then 6'11" Cisse and 6'9" Dane Danger. So this is kind of a really good first test for Mizzou to see if the things that Dennis Gates has said they're improving on, like defense, like rebounding, if it's real. I mean, do you have the big men that can compete with top-level size and top-level big men at this level? And if you don't, you got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how, because then you have a month or so and you're facing Illinois and Kansas. So I think it's a really good just start of the season, kind of barometer of where this team is at. And I actually expect Missouri to beat Memphis on Monday or today, whenever anyone's listening. I think Mizzou might have gelled a little bit quicker, and they haven't had all the craziness going on. And it's recently Memphis has struggled at the beginning of seasons, kind of because of these things. I think Memphis is still going to be a really good team. I just think Mizzou gets them at maybe the perfect time.
And I mean, it was obviously well established. I mean, Dennis Gates, year 1, comes in, wins the first tournament game Missouri has won in well over a decade, builds up a ton of goodwill, and blows through basically all of it in 19 games last season. So it's kind of back to square one. I mean, how much does even getting a win, regardless of how in chaos or turmoil it is, how much is just getting a win over Memphis? How much would that do to maybe kick Mizzou off, like get them on a roll before they hit, quite frankly, a part of the schedule where they should not lose one single game.
Yeah, I think that I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, would you say that if Missouri beats Memphis and Cal and loses to Illinois and Kansas for their 4 kind of tough non-cons, would that be a successful non-conference schedule? And he said yes, and I agree. I think that is enough because I think, well, Cal's not great. That's probably still a quad, maybe a quad 2 win. And Memphis going on the road, and a Memphis team that I think will find a way to get it together and be a tournament team, probably win the American. I think that might be a quad 1 win at the end. So if you get 2 decent wins, Cal at home and then Memphis here, then you're kind of playing with house money at Illinois and Kansas. So it'll kind of feel like if you lose this game, you need to find a way to beat Illinois or Kansas to have some room for error in the SEC. If we're looking at NCAA tournament, which I think with the transfer portal and everything, you should be. Because it's not easy, but it's doable to turn around a team that goes 0-18 and then make the tournament. Like Iowa State did it a few years ago. I don't think they won a Big 12 game and they made the NCAA tournament. So I think a Memphis win would really turn heads for Mizzou fans and kind of show them that they're there. Because if you remember in Dennis Gates' first season, the first win that kind of did that was that or was it Illinois? I can't remember. I might be out of order.
Illinois was before Iowa State.
Okay, it was the Illinois game, and that was late December of, wow, we are for real. Maybe this Mizzou team is better than people think because they had beaten not great teams to go. So I think if you beat Memphis and then take care of the non-con games that you should win, it'll build a lot of goodwill back up for Dennis Gates.
310. That's the amount of days since the last Mizzou men's basketball win, which is very hard to believe. This team has not won a game in the year of 2024. Talked about, room for error in the SEC, a little bit of shakeup, especially on some of these coaching staffs going into the season. I mean, what does the SEC kind of slate kind of look like, especially with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma? I mean, is it a tougher field than last season? And I mean, are the Tigers kind of up for the test this year?
Yeah, I mean, Ken Palm ranks it as the toughest conference in the NCAA. That might not stick, but it's easily a top 3. Most likely will be a top 2 by the end of the season. And I was actually talking to Jack about this. I think 9-9 in the SEC and wins over Memphis and Cal probably gets you in the tournament. At worst, it gives you a win or 2 in the SEC tournament and you're in. I think 9-9 is doable in the SEC because I think there's a couple teams like Vandy, Mississippi State, maybe even Georgia that aren't quite going to be great, especially the Vanderbilts and Miss States. And I think that there's enough home games and just teams that are all kind of together that you can find some wins over those type of teams as the season goes on. But yeah, I think Missouri will be a middle of the pack team in the SEC.
And I mean, if they are able to just maybe not make the tournament, but like you said, I mean, they maybe just knock off Cal, maybe they knock off Memphis. They win like 6 or 7 games in the SEC. I personally think that would be more than enough to restore a bit of faith in Dennis Gates. But is that the mindset you might be of as well? I mean, just a half decent season probably is good enough.
Yeah, I think a half decent season. I mean, the guy brought Missouri to the round of 32 off a season that no one was really expecting. I think it would kind of ease Missouri fans' minds that this upward trajectory that obviously took a huge dip is kind of back on. The rebuild's still going. We're getting good recruits, that type of thing. But I think that for Dennis Gates, that would be an utter disappointment because I think he thinks it's the most talented team he's had in his 3 years here. I think he's expecting an NCAA tournament bid if Missouri stays healthy and plays to the potential they should.
Grant, before we let you go, kind of want to spin some fun questions on you, kind of ease back into some fun things talking about this team. But this team looks different from years past, and that's not just because of the players, new players coming in, new coaching staff, uniforms. This is a very different year, wearing throwbacks, 3 different colors. You got the gold, black, and white. I mean, it just feels like this team has just got a new identity with that. I mean, what does it kind of feel like around the team wearing those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rumor is that there might be brand new uniforms next year, so that might be why they're going with the throwbacks for a year. But I wouldn't mind it being permanent. I love them. I think they look amazing. But yeah, I think it kind of just gives. I think it was something that was needed to maybe get the fans excited. It's something so silly, but good vibes need to be back in Mizzou Arena. People need a reason to go see it. It almost feels like Gates' first year again, where there was just a bunch of uncertainty. A team that had been struggling for a while. What's this going to bring? And they were pretty good. And that's what this season feels like. Is there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of it feels a little pessimistic coming off such a rough season. But I think that the vibes are really good. I think a few wins and these new uniforms will kind of help that. Help just keep things fresh and fun.
And I mean, obviously, every year under Gates, they have run out a bazillion different lineup combos, so there's no point in even trying to nail down just one. I'm not even going to ask you for your starting 5 against Memphis. Give me the 5 players you think play the most minutes this season.
This season, ooh. Well, obviously Caleb Gray.
Grill, you mean, right? Not Josh Gray?
Yeah,
okay. Mm-hmm.
I got confused because I'm about to say Josh Gray. I think will play. I think he'll be the starting center. There's just all the guards. I'm not sure what to make of.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Tony Perkins, but that's with the asterisk of that he actually plays sooner rather than later. Ooh, okay. Mark Mitchell, obviously.
Right.
4. And then I'll go that Marquez Warwick plays a lot. I think they need him on the court.
Would Tamar Bates be like maybe the 6th guy on that
list? I think Warwick, Bates, and Perkins could all be rotated out. I think they'll be really close with minutes. I think that those 6 will kind of be the most vital players. Maybe even put Bates over Warwick. It's just tough game to game what Gates sees in his guards for defensive, because I don't know if the offensive capabilities. I think all 3 are very good offensive guards, so that's why I think they can be interchangeable.
I like that.
Yeah. I had a conversation with someone recently. I think this is probably the hardest sport to predict anything in, especially in this day and age. So many transfers, so many guys moving in. You just have no idea what this team is going to look like 2 months from now, especially under Dennis Gates. There's so much change that happens with that starting 5. But looking back, Memphis Tigers are going to open the season against the Memphis Tigers on Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. You can catch that on ESPN Plus. And you can catch all your coverage for this season from Grant Salsman at the Columbia Missourian. You can also find him on Twitter at Grant_Salsman, and email him. Spam him with some emails at gmsdhw@umsystem.edu. That's gmsdhw@umsystem.edu. Yeah, I thought I'd throw it in there. Spam him with some questions. It's always fun to read those as well, especially when I was there. I know Payton can say that too. Anytime you got a message from a reader is always a good feeling. So reach out to Grant when you have those questions, and he's going to continue that coverage. But Grant, last thing before we get out of here, what is your kind of like official prediction for the record for the season?
They play 31 games if you don't know off the top.
31 games, 18 of those SEC games. So I think they win 9 SEC games. So that leaves me 13 non-con games.
Yes.
I'll go that they win 11 non-con games. So I think 20-11 is the record. I think they beat one of Illinois or Memphis, and I think they beat Cal. Unfortunately, I think they lose to Kansas again, and I think they go 500 in the SEC. And they're right on that brink. They'll be right on that brink if things go the way that I think. Maybe it's an SEC tournament game away from then being in the NCAA tournament, which I think, like, if you told Mizzou fans that right now that they'd be on even the bubble, I think everybody would take that.
I'd run to the bank with that.
Yeah.
Well, Grant, thank you for joining us. We'll try to have you back on at some point in the season. I think you got a lot of people excited about this year. I think a lot of people are looking for a better year than last year. But this is season 3 under Dennis Gates. That's Grant Salsman. Find him on X. Find him at the Columbia Missourian, Grant_Salsman. And we'll finish the show with quick hits. All right. Before quick hits, Peyton and I are going to do our quick predictions for the starting 5 that we think the Mizzou Tigers are going to roll out against Memphis here on Monday. And then a quick score prediction as well. We'll get into maybe some more SEC predictions and record predictions once we get to SEC play. It feels like that's just a little bit more appropriate. We did that last year as well. Peyton was the closest because they didn't win a game. So let's see if he'll be the repeat champion. Before we do quick hits, we'll look at this. Peyton, do you want to give me your predicted starting 5?
Yeah, I'll do mine first. Look, with Dennis Gates, you're never going to get the starting 5 right. Jesus goddamn Carolero started the first game last year. Like his first season, I remember the starting 5 looked nothing like how we thought it would. I think we all thought Sean East was going to be the point guard, and then it was Nick Honor, and the rest is history. But this year, I am still going to go like kind of a cookie cutter starting 5. I am going to I'm going to take Dennis Gates a little seriously, and I'm going to say Tony Perkins is the starting point guard. I think he'll be out there at the 1. I think he'll be, if not, I genuinely think he will start Anthony Robinson. I think Ant will be the starter if it's not Perkins. Also out there, I think you will get Caleb Grill. I think he'll maybe be the 2 or the 3, whichever one. Maybe the 3. I kind of lean Grill at the 3, Bates at the 2, but you can have either one play either spot. The 4, I think, is going to be Mark Mitchell. I think Mitchell and Perkins, when both are healthy, those are the 2 bona fide absolute starters. I think I can probably throw Grill into the definite starter category as well now. And at the 5, I don't think Dennis Gates is going to get cute. I think he's going to put just a straight up big dude out there. I think Josh Gray will start the opening tip. I don't think it'll be Peyton Marshall, but I do think Peyton Marshall will play in this game. So that's my 5. Perkins, assuming he's healthy, Bates, Grill, Mitchell, Gray.
Well, I guess I don't have to give mine as well. So that's literally what I was going to say, Peyton. So thank you for knocking that one out. I'll do something different and say the first guy I think off the bench. Let's go Bote. I think that would
be
really
a cool thing to do.
I think that's one of those things you kind of seen from Dennis Gates, that he just does something unorthodox, something that you just haven't seen. But I guess it isn't unorthodox for Dennis, where his staff kind of sees development. I think it'd be very interesting if you see Andrew Boateng as the first guard off the bench.
I am gonna say Dennis Gates does a very Dennis Gates thing. The first guy off the bench, Aiden Shaw.
Yep, that was my second one.
Aiden Shaw, I think, will be the first guy off the bench. One other thing, Grant kind of touched on it there. He thinks Marcus Allen will play the most out of the freshmen. I don't know if I'd say that, but I genuinely believe that based off everything we've heard about Marcus Allen's defensive prowess, he may not be there offensively, but if Mizzou is like clinging to a lead with 5-6 minutes left, like they're up 74-71 or something, I think we see Marcus Allen in, and I think they're going to count on him for key defensive possessions. That's a hot take I'll throw out there.
Man, it's getting me excited just talking about this. I love watching college basketball. It's great to see this back. It's just one of those sports where you just know every single player, you know everything that they bring to the table. It's very exciting to see this. Peyton, what is going to be your score prediction for the Memphis game?
I don't know, man. There's you can call me a hopeless romantic, but I believe Missouri is, I agree with Grant. I think they're catching Memphis at the perfect time. Memphis is just so chaotic right now. There's talent all over the board for Memphis. I mean, like Grant said, Tyrese Hunter's there. They got Dane Danger. Musa Cisse's a experienced big. There's a lot of guys there that can play. But I think Missouri is going to Penny Hardaway is running a literal circus over there. Like, they have to, if Missouri is going to be serious about this season, I think they have to get this game. And I think they will. I'm going to say Missouri wins this game 78-74.
it's not a Power Four team. It's mid-major in some regard, but Memphis has had success in recent years. But I like this. I like a team. I like an SEC team. I like a team that struggled last season, has a new identity, looks completely different, opening the season against this and not a cupcake, and not against Central Arkansas or Pine Bluff. No, nothing against those schools, but they're not SEC
Southern
level.
Indiana.
Southern Indiana. Yeah, it's just one of those things where you're looking at a team like this. I'm on the side that Mizzou will get away with a win here, but it's also one of those things where it's like you haven't seen them do it yet. It's still, it's new. I'd be optimistic about it, but also be cautious in that regard because there are guys that are playing together for the first time. But like we talked about with Grant, like we've seen in some of these videos just around the team, it seems like they're in good spirits. It seems like the culture is back to where it was in the first year under Dennis Gates. There's a lot of talents coming in. There are a lot of talent that's already here. Or already at Mizzou, excuse me. I'm thinking, I always lean like into the 70s, high 60s. I'm going to say 74 to 68 is where I think this one will go.
Yeah, you mentioned, this isn't like a true bona fide, like super high major. They're a high major team, but not like the high major that you're traditionally used to. But it is a really, really great opening game. Like, it's just like, this is a game that you could really have be a true feather in your cap if it comes bubble time. This is a game that I think I kind of hate having it first because, you want to get your legs under you before such an important game like this. But it's exciting, like in the same way, because early in the season, anything can happen. Teams are not anywhere close to what they will be by the end of the year. And it's a good one to get. So I do 100% agree with you. I'm excited to have this one first. Currently, the spread, just looking at ESPN Bet, Memphis is a 4.5 point favorite. The game is at Memphis, so there is that to consider. Torvik, handy dandy Torvik, as I like to call it, has Memphis as a 7-point favorite in this one. So the Tigers are not going to be favorites in many games. Just as a heads up, they went 0-19 in SEC play last year, in case anyone forgot. But it's so much more talented a team. I've been optimistic about this season ever since they got the Mark Mitchell committed graphic tweeted. So I'm optimistic. I really hope this game goes Mizzou's way. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to repeat our score predictions. I was 74-68. Peyton, you were
78-74.
All right. Kind of a close one from both of us. But you can tune into that game again, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus Monday if you haven't already watched it. But let's get into quick hits, Peyton. And I got a good one this week. I heard this on a show I was just listening to the other day, just kind of listening to some podcasts. But this is a pretty fun one. Okay. In 2016, Virginia Tech quarterback Jared Evans broke the single season quarterback rushing touchdown record at Virginia Tech. Whose record did he break?
Virginia Tech?
Yeah.
I would say Michael Vick.
It is not Michael Vick.
Wow. It's not Michael Vick.
So that's the tough part.
I have another guess that I think is also correct.
Okay.
And I think did this guy play in the 2000s?
He did not.
What? It's not Tyrod Taylor?
It's not Tyrod Taylor.
Oh.
I believe Tyrod Taylor was there in 2010 in that range, like before Jared
So I guess
Evans.
not the 2000s, but the 2010s.
No, this guy was coaching in the 2000s.
When did he play at Vatech?
The season he set this record, 1974.
I have absolutely no idea.
You know who this guy is. You just have no idea.
Is he still coaching?
No, he recently retired.
Recently retired. Where was he coaching?
That would give it away.
Was it college or NFL?
NFL. So he's still with the team that he retired from coaching, just he's not in a coaching role. That should help.
Recently retired. How recent?
2021. But he's still with the organization, just in a different capacity.
With the org in a different capacity. It's not Pete Carroll, obviously. NFL team. that he retired recently. Was this a good NFL? Did they win a Super Bowl under him?
Yep.
They did. Wow. And he retired in 2021. When did they win the Super Bowl?
I will not tell you that. I will also give it away. I'll run down the teams he coached for just to see if it'll help. He was Peyton Manning's quarterback coach for the Colts. He was the offensive coordinator for the Browns. He was a wide receiver coach and then the offensive coordinator for the Steelers for Big Ben early in his career from 2007 to 2011.
This isn't Bruce Arians.
It is Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians was the rushing yards leader?
Touchdown leader, yes.
Touchdown leader? Sorry.
So in 1974, his senior season at Virginia Tech, he was a starting quarterback in a wishbone offense for the then independent Hokies. He completed 53 of his 118 passes. That's 44.9% for 952 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. That season, he rushed for 243 yards and 11 touchdowns, which set a school record for most quarterback rushing touchdowns in a season. It stood for 42 years until broken by Jared Evans in 2016.
Kenny, that is an elite Ken Sports Shorts. That is a great one. That is a mind blower. That's good.
So the thing is, when I heard it on the podcast, when I was listening to, they said he still held the record. And then I looked it up and I was like, okay, he's not, he doesn't say he's in first. And then I found out it was
this a Barstool?
Yeah, it was a Barstool thing I found. Just on the podcast. This is also a pretty cool thing I just learned about Bruce Arians. He was also the first white player to share a dorm room with a black player in school history at Virginia Tech. His roommate was James Barber, father of Rondé and Tiki Barber.
Unbelievable.
Bruce Arians has an incredible career, life, and story.
That is a really good one. I love that. That is a great Ken Sports Shorts. Well done.
I got one more thing. Bruce Arians, do you remember he tore his Achilles in one of his final seasons as a coach? His Achilles is still torn, according to this interview I listened to him on part of my Take the Barstool podcast. He still has a torn Achilles.
He never fixed his Achilles.
Yeah, there was something. It just can't be fixed. So he just
like, hey, you're better off leaving it unfixed.
He is 72 years old. Recently, just a month ago, on October 3rd, turned 72.
Wow, he's looked 70 for about 20 years. So that is a crazy stat. I never in a million years, if I didn't get all those hints, would have guessed that.
All right. Let's go to Tigers in the Wild. This is a good one. I think this is a good one to start off on. JJ Hester. I think it's timely because Mizzou's playing Oklahoma.
Yeah,
this
I'll
week.
say.
Former Mizzou wide receiver JJ Hester, who's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, ended up transferring to Oklahoma. He had a 90-yard touchdown reception against Maine. Don't count out Maine, though. Maine scored on the first drive of this game, but ended up getting blown out by the Sooners. But Jackson Arnold hooking up with JJ Hester for 90 yards and the TD. JJ Hester returning to Columbia on Saturday.
This is like JJ Hester's third year at Oklahoma, and I think this is like his second touchdown, I swear. It reminds me of when he had that big touchdown grab from, I think it was Tyler Macon against SEMO.
Yeah, thing about too, we'll get into it about when we do our preview. Oklahoma's had so many injuries to the wide receiver room. Like JJ Hester has had to step up in a big way, and he's seeing a lot of targets right now at Oklahoma. There are just so many connections. We'll talk about it later this week. There are just so many connections between these two programs right now, and just all the hype going into this game. And now just both teams aren't very good.
Yeah. We thought this game might legitimately have been a potential game day game going into the year, and they got relegated to SEC Network. Really depressing. But
6:45 kickoff. Found that out on Saturday.
Yep. Can't wait. Drew Pine. Woo. Moving on. My Tiger in the Wild is going to be Kobe Brown. He saw his first NBA action on Saturday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He played 4 minutes, did not take any shots, but he did get a rebound, did get an assist, all in 4 minutes. It was a 13-point loss to the Thunder. So there you go. Kobe Brown. I stole the Kobe Brown watching from Knowlton.
Yeah, he texted me, and it was like he didn't even bring up Kobe Brown, and his whole thing going into this season was that he was gonna have Kobe Brown every single week, and he was like, "Can you get me Darius Robinson?" I was like, Darius Robinson ended up actually being ruled out for this game, first time off of IR, and yeah, he still didn't go with Kobe Brown.
I got it, Knowlton. Don't worry.
But speaking of former Mizzou men's basketball players in the NBA, Jordan Clarkson is set to appear on the Hawk Tua podcast with Haley Welch.
Talk
This
to
is a Talk to a podcast. Peyton knows it well. When Jack sent me this tweet, I was wondering in the back of my mind, did he think it was real? That was the first thing that popped up. It only has one quote tweet or one like quote or retweet and 3 likes. But I think he just wanted to get it on here because Jordan Clarkson ended up having 21 points in one of his first games for Utah to start the NBA season. Of course, Jordan Clarkson played for the Mizzou Tigers. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's Tigers in the Wild, Kenny.
Yeah, but I think I have to say that now because I've been kind of off the rails with my Tigers in the Wild.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But this is the most boy no Tigers did anything selection I've ever seen. It's a tweet with 3 likes.
Yeah.
A parody tweet. Did he think this was real? Did you ask him?
No. I think he just wanted me to put this one on here and talk about Jordan Clarkson playing. Weirdly, I mean, just like weirdly enough, like thing when you were talking about that Mizzou players weren't doing anything. I don't know if you watched any of the Giants game on Sunday, Peyton, but in that first half, Daniel Jones did not have a single passing yard. He had 0 passing yards, and I think like 3 completions and a touchdown. Just because,
What?
yeah, it was a ridiculous stat. I'll try to find it real quick while looking it up. But it really just makes you think, like, is Drew Lock going to get an opportunity here sooner or later?
Well, it didn't wind up happening. They wound up playing Washington kind of close.
There it is. He went
4
for 6,
6,
0 passing yards, and 1 touchdown in the first half against the Commanders.
That is an unbelievably cool stat line. That's awesome. That's more impressive than like 300 yards and a half. I love that.
I can't get over those Giants throwbacks either. I'm not a big uniform guy. That's your jurisdiction, Peyton. But man,
You're
oh
a
man,
uniform guy. You
Daniel
got a uniform
Jones
spot.
looks great in that uniform.
Those are some slick unis. 100%. I hope the Giants are good eventually so that they can wear those in a big game. They're slick.
All right, let's move on. Headlines, of course, my headline pretty much every week is the AP Top 25 College Football Poll. Mizzou did not play this week, of course, coming off the bye, and the Missouri Tigers are out of the AP poll. Probably the last time we'll probably talk about this because the first college football playoff rankings comes out on Tuesday, and we'll talk about that in the Friday show. But Missouri was the 26th team, receiving 81 votes. Louisville, who slipped back in after a win against Clemson, 33-21 on the road, received 115. Peyton, what do you kind of make of this?
Well, I mean, like you said, this is the last time the AP poll is actually going to matter, and it's going to matter for 2 days. They kind of just decided to have some fun with it. It feels like, I mean, head-to-head was just not taken into account this week. Look, I don't think Missouri is deserving of being ranked really right now. I don't think they'll be ranked in the CFP. But there's really no reason to have them behind Vanderbilt in the AP poll. They beat Vanderbilt and have a better record than Vanderbilt. Not really good there. Kansas State is behind Colorado, even though Colorado and them have the same record, and Kansas State has a better record. Didn't make any sense. I felt like Clemson was punished a little too harshly comparatively to Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a better team than Clemson, but A&M lost by 24 to an unranked team. Clemson lost by 12 to a now AP Top 25 team and fell to 19. A&M only fell to 15. I mean, these teams were 10 and 11 last week. I don't think they really deserve to fall that much. I didn't have any other real takeaways. Oregon deserves to be unanimous right now, the unanimous number 1, even if you don't necessarily think they're the best team in the country, which I still kind of think it's Georgia. Oregon definitely has earned that number 1 ranking.
Yeah, I like it. A great breakdown there. Last time we'll probably talk about this one. I actually wanted to come and look at just one final ballot, and that's Emily Liker, who worked with us at the Columbia Missourian. Some people that might be listening maybe remember seeing her name when she covered the football team back in the 2021 season. But this was, I believe, her final AP ballot. She was the Syracuse football beat writer. She did some other things for Syracuse.com and the Post Standard, but she recently accepted a job to be covering the Minnesota Vikings. So this is her final week.
Wow.
Covering the Syracuse team. And I think I don't think I've ever brought it up before, but I always like to look at hers because it's always cool when you know someone that has an AP ballot. And she did not have alma mater, which is very good. I mean, not, this is
we produce real journalists at
journalists.
Missouri. All right. This is real journalism.
But Emily Liker did not have her alma mater in her top 25.
I did not know she accepted a job to cover the Vikings. That's very cool. Good for Emily. She won't get to see the end of the Kyle McCord season, though, which is a tragedy.
She was the person I got all my Syracuse information from. I think some people might know I have a kind of a liking to Syracuse, and now I don't have that source anymore.
Kenny would have gone to Syracuse if he could have.
Who wouldn't have? Am I right?
You would have frozen to death.
I like the cold. Peyton, what's your headline?
That is a lie. Let's get that on the record for the podcast. Yeah, we're talking about volleyball again because Mizzou volleyball, the headline is, it comes from mutigers.com. Volleyball overcomes number 9 Texas in 5 sets Friday. Yeah, Mizzou went to Texas and beat the top team in the SEC. Is Texas, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, if you don't know, let me know. Are they the 2-time defending champs? I thought I heard that stat maybe.
Sounds right.
Either way, they were the number 1 team in the SEC. Missouri went in and beat them in 5 sets. Missouri is on a heater right now. I believe they've won 7 in a row now. So Texas is they're the back-to-back national champions. Missouri is 16-5 now, and they are tops in the SEC. They're tied with Texas and Kentucky, I believe, was the other 7-2 team. So there you go. I mean, Don Sullivan's squad is competing for an SEC title right now. They got Georgia on Wednesday, and don't forget, you get double points for going to these games towards the Kansas ticket priority. So there's even more incentive to go to watch this game.
Are you an advertisement? No free ads, Peyton.
No free ads, but go watch the women's volleyball team. They've earned it.
Yeah, women's volleyball team, the Mizzou women's volleyball team will play Kentucky at home for Fansgiving on November 27th, which is a Wednesday. That will be on ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus, 7 p.m. So if you want to catch that one, that's a good game there. Another ranked opponent, Florida, November 15th, Friday at 7 p.m. Another home game there. And they got matchups against Georgia, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Auburn mixed in to finish out the year. But it does take me back to, I think we looked at that one tweet, and I think someone said Kentucky and Mizzou all by itself in second place, but Kentucky was tied there. So this is very exciting to see for Mizzou fans. Just another sport to follow when really hasn't been too much success in the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess when it was being when we were there from 2019 to 2022. So quite the turnaround.
Jack's headline of the week is bowl projections. Comes from CBS Sports. Tennessee Notre Dame join college football playoff field as Clemson, Texas A&M exit. Peyton, as I try to navigate where this bowl projection is, I mean,
you got to click that link there. I've been on this. No.
That one. Complete bowl projections.
Yeah.
Peyton, where do you see Mizzou going for the bowl game as of right now?
Well, it's hard to say because we don't know the status of Brady Cook. This is far and away, Jerry Palm from CBS is the one who does this. He is far and away the most optimistic on Mizzou. He has them in the Citrus Bowl against Indiana. If Brady Cook comes back and they go like 9-3, 10-2. Citrus is a very real possibility. Maybe they drop to like ReliaQuest or Gator, get one of those Florida Bowls. I mean, worst it comes to worst, you're looking at 6-6. You may be looking at Liberty in Memphis, maybe Birmingham. I don't think they'll go back to Gasparilla. If I had to like give my honest to God guess right now, I'd say Music City. That's the one that gets brought up the most. I think ESPN had them in Music City today. They have two guys do their projections. One had them in Vegas, one had them in Music City. Kind of that second rung of bowls. Like, I think they'll probably be more likely to look at Music City against a Big Ten team, Las Vegas against a Big 12 team, or Pac-12, one of the old Pac-12 teams. And yeah, I mean, Texas is a possibility. That'd be right in your backyard, Kenny. That'd be convenient for you.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say right now. We don't know the status of Brady Cook. This would be very nice if Gary Palm is correct.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and I was looking at that Texas Bowl, which is right above it. They're both on December 31st on New Year's Eve. LSU versus TCU. Battle of some purple there. You're going to get a good crowd for that game.
Yeah, fun little
Houston.
matchup there.
Weird to see that game at 3:30 because that's always been a night game in my head.
Oh, yeah.
But man, like LSU with some of the wins, some of the games they've had on their schedule already, God, that would probably suck for a lot of LSU fans to go to the Texas Bowl again.
Yeah, if LSU is in the Texas Bowl at the end of the year, I think that's something that's gone quite wrong. I mean, maybe you're looking at a 7-5, 8-4 team there, and that's gonna not alleviate any questions as Kenny is pulling up an old friend.
Yep. Last thing we'll talk about here with headlines because it kind of bled into this.
Speaking of the Texas Bowl, even
that's what reminded me of it. Talking about the Texas Bowl, Tom Herman had a moment here after the FAU USF game between Alex Golish and him. Alex Golish kind of shook him off, hit him with a handshake, and did not want to give Tom Herman the time of day. Kind of a backstory on this one. Last season, USF got blown out by FAU at home. And in that game, FAU was up by a couple scores and did an onside kick and did not go over well with USF. They got the ball back. And this year, I mean, it kind of reminds you of this Tennessee-Mizzou game in 2023. USF went for 2 up a couple touchdowns. Did not look like Tom Herman liked that. When Tom Herman was kind of going after him, the person that kind of calmed him down ended up being his wife. So just probably not the best look for Tom Herman. But I liked what Alex Golish did. Just showed no emotion. I mean, it is a pretty stand-up clip. And I think in the post-game press conference, he kind of put it down a little bit, just didn't really make it a big deal. But he mentioned, they remember getting beat up last year and they wanted to return the favor.
Yeah, I think Alex Golish, maybe after exacting your revenge on the field, maybe you don't do that kind of type of handshake with Tom Herman. Let sleeping dogs lie at that point. But boy, oh boy, it is such an ugly look for Tom Herman to be like trying. You can tell he's like cursing at him. He's like, "Come back here, say it to my face." Alex Golish is just not giving him the time of day as he shakes Tom Herman's own players' hands. I'm so glad I didn't go to Mizzou during that Texas Bowl, because if I would have saw that Tom Herman thing, I remember watching that game. Like, even when I wasn't a Mizzou fan, I remember watching that game as I was going to bed. Like, just seeing Tom Herman do that, I was like, what the hell? He's a grown-ass man doing that. I would have been, I would like to hear, honestly, from people that were, like, full-time Mizzou fans at the time, like, what the fallout from that was. I would have been irate with Tom Herman.
I honestly wonder, I'm going to look this up. This is going to be a weird search, but I think I have the photo on my Instagram from this game.
You do. I remember we've talked about it. Oh, there's the Mandalorian.
Let's see.
Parody.
I don't think this is me.
I don't think it's you either. Just look up Kenny Van Doren Instagram. Yeah, that's probably easier. Let me talk to not have dead air while we do this research.
Oh,
I don't
a
know.
private. No.
Oh,
Okay.
you
Well,
idiot.
well, I probably had still that photo up on my Instagram, but I was at that game. That was my first Mizzou game. I was junior. We were both juniors in high school at the time in 2017. Not a lot of people at that game. Texas versus Missouri, old
It's a
Big 12
bummer.
matchup, but there was not a lot of people. Not a lot of people in black and gold either. Of course, if you don't remember, Drew Lock and the Tigers ended that game with a loss. There was a guy from my high school who was a walk-on that I saw on the sidelines at that game. He was not in uniform, just in a jumpsuit. Ended up playing, I believe, at Abilene Christian, which is kind of a fun tie-in there.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's the only time Luther Burden has been good on punts. Um, sorry, I didn't mean to put that in there, but yeah, good old Texas bowl games. It's my jam. You know, I love the bowl game matchups. That's one benefit of Mizzou not making the playoff. I get to look into the bowl matchups again.
What is the closest or furthest bowl game, realistically, that you would go to, Peyton, before we close this out?
Man, I don't know. I'm not going to any of the Florida Bowls this year. I've been to I saw Mizzou win the Cotton Bowl last year. I don't need to see them play in the Gator Bowl. I think I might go to Music City. That's like a cool matchup. That's like on New Year's Eve, right? I think it is.
The ones I saw, I don't believe so. There's only
Texas
two.
Bowl is.
Yes.
Obviously if it's the Texas Bowl, I'd go to that. If it's Liberty, depending on the matchup, I'd think about it. But Music City, cool city. You'd get a Big Ten matchup. That could be a Nebraska bowl game matchup. That would be really cool to go and see. So it kind of just depends on the matchup. I'm not super motivated, man. I saw Mizzou. I saw Mizzou win the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State in Jerry World. Like that. That's never, ever, ever, ever getting topped.
Music City Bowl is December 30th, so the day before New Year's Eve. I'm looking at this just one more time. There is no bowl game on December 22nd this year, and that is the day of the Illinois-Mizzou bragging rights basketball game. So if you were worried about that,
This year Armed Forces Bowl.
if you were biting your fingernails over that, there is nothing to worry about this year in that regard. Wow, no bowl games on December 22nd. Because there are the first rounds of the playoff
CFB.
on December 20th and the 21st, but no bowl
What's
games.
the furthest you'd travel, Kenny?
Just depending on where my employer sends me, if they want to send me. But if I wasn't going as a or as a media member, I don't even think I would go to Florida. Maybe something within 9 hours of driving.
There's just I have no motivation to go see them in Florida. Like even if it's the Citrus Bowl is a great bowl game for Mizzou. Like Mizzou should strive to be ReliaQuest Citrus Bowl level good every year as like their baseline, because they're just never going to be a playoff every year team. But I can't get up for the Citrus Bowl after last year.
Understandable. I think there's a lot better feeling though around winning a Citrus Bowl now than probably years past, but even was a really good bowl game in recent memory. Peyton, can you end us with a joke?
Yes, I can, Kenny. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Kenny, what do you call a locomotive carrying bubble gum? Bubblegum locomotive.
This is a tough one. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a good one, though.
A choo-choo train.
I'm removing you, not because I'm mad at you for that joke, but I'm mad at because I didn't get that one right. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Unwritten Rule. Thank you to Grant Salsman for joining us and previewing the men's basketball season. Again, that game is at 7 p.m. The season opener against Memphis on SEC Plus. Or sorry, excuse me, ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. So go watch that game if you haven't watched it already. We will catch you guys on Friday with Jack.